All right, we all wired up? Our next speaker has been here before, and the last time he was here, it was just fantastic. So this one won't be nearly as good, so we'll just move on to the next one. Actually, Erik is my neighbor. It's called the Chicago, Colorado Colony. Erik Mason is our presenter. He's the curator of research at the Longmont Museum. He's responsible for documenting Longmont history, preserving the museum collections. When not digging through the vaults in search of stories from Longmont history, like when did my mother-in-law move here? Why? He enjoys a cappella singing, fixing up his house, which I meant to talk to you about. He has an MA degree in History Museum Studies from Cooperstown Graduate Program of the State University of New York, and 16 years of experience in the museum and archival collections. So you're about to learn how we all ended up here and why are we here. There you go.
I'm good. I'm delighted to be here and tell you a little bit about the earliest years of the community of Longmont, which was first called the Chicago, Colorado Colony. Now, how did Chicago get into this Colorado business? Well, it turns out back in the 1870s, every town that was any town was building cities out in the West. New York did it with a town they called Greeley. I don't know how well that one turned out, but you know. There was a group from Germany that actually came over to the US, and Chicago said, we're going to do this too. So they decided to create a new community in the West, and on November 22nd, 1870, they had a meeting at the headquarters of the YMCA in Chicago at Farwell Hall to create a new town out in Colorado. Now they were looking for ideas, but more than that, they were looking for money, because what they needed was a lot of money in order to create a new town, buy a lot of land. Now, one of the people that came out to look for where the best place to be, the colonies to settle, was this man here, Seth Terry. Terry Street is named for him, so every time you go down Terry Street, you can thank him for that. He came out to Colorado on the train with two other gentlemen, went up and down the Colorado Front Range looking for the best place to found a new town. They went all the way from Colorado Springs all the way up to where Fort Collins is now, and ultimately they settled on a location just north of a little town called Burlington, along the banks of the St. Vrain River. Now they decided that maybe settling right next to the river wasn't the smartest thing, so they located up on top of the hill, just a little bit north of Burlington, and all the folks in Burlington said, you know what, this is a great idea, we're going to move up the hill and join you. So right away they doubled their population. Now when Seth Terry was out here, he wrote back to his family, and we have these wonderful letters, including this letter back saying that he was marking the corners of the plot of the town with buffalo horns while prairie dogs barked all around them. Now it came time to name this new town. Chicago, Colorado Colony was a bit of a mouthful. So they looked around, what's the biggest landmark they could see? And there on the western horizon was Long's Peak. And so they decided, we're going to name our town Longmont. Long for Long's Peak, Mont for the French word for mountain. They put together a plat. This is probably the earliest map of the town of Longmont. In many ways, it's a fairly typical plat map of the time. Has parks, it has a downtown, but there's one thing that makes it just a little bit unique, and that is these irrigating canals, because they realized out here in the West, water doesn't fall from the sky quite the way it does back east. And so they were going to need irrigation in order to make this western desert bloom. And that was probably the most lasting legacy of the Chicago, Colorado Colony, was creating huge irrigation ditches, including this one, Oligarchy Ditch, which today runs through the northern part of Longmont, but once watered huge areas, farms all along its route, and still is an important water source for Longmont today. Longmont, by 1872, was a thriving community. It had a variety of different businesses, dry goods, furniture. There was even one or two people on the street once in a while. The community would have a variety of different things. It also had grocery stores, even a hotel. It was really a community that seemed like it was on the way up. One of the things I love is that they hadn't quite got the trees to grow very tall yet. If you look at it here, they're about 8 feet tall. You know, they were working on that part. It takes a little bit longer. But they wanted to do a little bit more than just be a business-oriented town. And one of the people that helped them do that was this woman, Elizabeth Thompson. She was actually a New York philanthropist. I don't know how she connected up with Chicago, but she bought memberships for 20 people. Now, a membership in the colony cost $155, so it was a pretty expensive proposition, but she wanted to make the town significant. She also provided money for the building a little bit to the left of center here. It was called Library Hall, and it contained 300 books. It was a library in that sense. It wasn't a library in the sense that they figured out a way to check them back in after people checked them out, so it didn't last real long as a library. But by 1872, Longmont was a great going concern. People were very excited about it. They were really excited even about selling stoves. You know, if you look up there, they're really excited about stoves. And the future seemed bright for the Chicago, Colorado colony. But one thing would happen that would change everything. When they went to file on some of their land, they discovered that the money that was supposed to be buying the land was instead going into somebody's pockets. We don't know exactly who, Burton Barnes, but that was kind of the beginning of the end for the Chicago, Colorado colony. And by 1873, the colony experiment gave way to a more typical form of municipal government with a town council, a mayor, and Longmont continued along in business, obviously, for many years with great success. But the colony had done its job. By 1873, Longmont was a thriving community with over 800 residents, businesses, industries, all watched over by the great mountain of Long's Peak in the background. And now a short word from our sponsors. The Longmont Museum is where the information for this came from, and I am always glad to help anyone out who wishes to do research on Longmont history or would like to find out how Greg Rodriguez's mother ended up here. I can probably find that out for you if you really want to know. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, that clears up a lot of speculation. All right? I always thought Longmont was named after a guy who took forever to get on his horse. And now you know. All right, knock it off. Knock it off.